Hi there. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Anna, and I wrote this class to be very beginner friendly. So if this is your first yoga class, or maybe you've done a few in the past, this is going to be a perfect place to start. Now, with that being said, I also think this would be a great class if you've been practicing for a while, because a lot of times while the basics tend to be simple, they're not always easy. So it's a nice way to kind of come back and check in with your practice. So I'm going to be using 2 blocks today. I highly recommend, if you have blocks, that you use them. If you don't have blocks, you could always use maybe like a large book or something block-like, but you'd probably be okay if you don't have blocks as well. So let's go ahead and come down onto your back. And you'll want to have your block nearby there. We won't use it quite yet. Now come on down to your back with your feet on the floor here. Your knees can be bent. And just take a moment here to relax your arms. And so they can be by your side or on your body. And you can soften or close your eyes. I'm just taking a few moments here before we get into any movement, just to check in and to notice what you're feeling. Maybe even noticing any expectations that you have set for yourself. And then allowing yourself the space and the permission to move in ways that feel good, to be present in your breath and in your body without putting maybe just some restrictions on yourself. Now begin to draw your attention to your breath. And notice where you feel your breath. And then go ahead and take your hands and just place them on the sides of your rib cage here. And you can maybe wrap kind of your thumb and your fingers around a bit. And we're just going to begin to breathe in and out through your nose. And I want you to think about, as you inhale, like you're breathing up into your ribs. And so we want to feel on the inhale kind of that lift and that expansion outward into your hands. And as you exhale, you'll feel the ribs kind of soften back. And just taking a few more breaths like that. Noticing that we can breathe fully and deeply without getting the neck and the shoulders overly involved. Noticing that as you completely exhale, you can start to feel some of that work in your belly and your abdominals. Go ahead and see if you can keep going with that breath. And grab a hold of your block if you have it. You can take the block the thinnest way like this, or the middle width. We're going to take that block between your inner thighs. So lightly hugging in with the thighs. Go ahead and take your hands onto the front of your pelvis and see if you can feel around for these bones on the front of the pelvis. We're going to call those the frontal pelvic points. And imagine here, once you've got your fingers on these bones, imagine that you could draw them lightly together. And so you'll feel right in between those front pelvic points a little bit of engagement, like deep in the belly. So we're thinking about hugging those points together. We're lightly hugging in with the block. So we just have some kind of awareness of strength around the pelvic floor, kind of the lower belly. And now keep that feeling of just lightly hugging in. It's almost like you were gonna buckle like a belt right there. And then lengthen your tailbone toward your heels. And so you feel your lower belly kind of hug in and down a little bit there. Now, without changing any of that, we're going to lift the hips up for a bridge. And so you can still have your hands on the front pelvic points, lightly hugging them in, and then we are using the glutes, so these butt muscles, to lift up. And you don't want to feel like you're arching in the back. And so the pelvis is staying neutral here, and we're not letting it tip forward so that the lower back is arching. So you should feel some good work around the glutes, around the hips, and then into the abdominal wall as well. And then just check in here again. So notice your breath. Notice any tension around your jaw, your shoulders, your neck. And then we're going to hold this bridge still. You can take your arms, reach them up toward the ceiling, and the fingers will point back so the palms are up. Take the left hand to the right fingers and pull them back. We're just getting a nice little stretch in the wrist and the forearm. And then switching sides, right hand pulls the left fingers back. Keep lightly hugging the block, wrapping the tailbone toward the heels or toward the knees. And then go ahead and lower your arms down to the floor. And we'll lower slowly, like your upper back, your middle back, your lower back, and then finally the lowest point in your spine. Then go ahead and take the block off to the side. And let's keep the feet as they are. Bring your hands behind your head. We're going to hug the elbows in here, and so we're just cupping the back of the skull. I want you to take a deep inhale. Exhale completely as you lift up off the shoulder blades. Now look down at your belly. Feel like you can pull the two sides of your ribs and your waist in toward each other, and then hug that down toward the floor. Inhale to lower back down. So if you can, you're holding kind of that retention when you're up, but if you feel like you are going to choke there, you are always welcome to take extra breaths. So inhale here. Exhale, lift up off the shoulder blades. Now look down at your belly. Hug the sides of your waist in and down. And then without lowering a ton there, just see if you can lean your head back into your hands so that we're not cranking up on the neck, but we are making the core and the abdominals do this work. Inhale, lower back down. Exhale, lift up. So we're initiating that work from the belly. You can look down, you can even put your hand on your belly, kind of hug the side ribs in, pull down. Nice work. Inhale to lower. We're going to add on some turns to that. Exhale and lift up. Make the belly do the work. Lean your head back into your hands a bit there, staying off the shoulder blades. Turn just about 1 inch to the right, but keep that feeling of cinching in around the waist. Come back through center. Inhale to lower. Exhale, lift up. Check in with the neck. We're not pulling up on the neck with the hands. We're using the core. Turn about 1 inch to the left. Hug in with the sideways. Nice. Come back through center. Inhale to lower. Let's do one more each side. Exhale, lift up. Turn 1 inch to the right and just feel that consolidation happening. The front pelvic points drawing in. You got it. Come back through center. Inhale, lower. One more here. Exhale, lift up. Turn 1 inch to the left. Notice if your belly is kind of like popping up there. We want to think about hugging it down. And then come back through center and release. Awesome. So let's come around to your side here. And we'll come into a tabletop position. So on your hands and knees. Now spreading the fingers nice and wide, we want to get the shoulders right on top of the wrists and the hips right on top of the knees. Now go ahead and take one hand to that space like right between the front pelvic points and think about hugging those pelvic points in even here. So you just feel like that slight engagement in the belly. So a lot of times when we are working our core, we're working our abs, is we start to get into these more superficial muscles, so kind of the six-pack abs that are closer to the surface. What we're trying to access here is those layers that are a little bit deeper, right? And so just feel kind of that light engagement. It's not going to feel like a huge contraction there. Now see if you can hold on to that. So front pelvic points drawing in, and then step the right foot back. Pelvic points are in here, and notice how that helps to activate this right glute muscle back here. Now see if you can maintain that. Reach the left arm forward. Nice. Watch that your chin is not jutting forward and you're not dropping the head, but the front of the face and the throat is lifted up. Now without changing anything, can you lift the right leg up? Ooh, a little bit more challenging. Nice. And we'll set the right knee and the left hand down. Awesome job. Check in again. Pelvic points are drawing in, and that's going to prevent your lower back from arching. That's a nice way to think of it. Left leg can reach back. And feel that left glute is squeezing. You can always take a hand back to it and give it a little tap, and you're sending that feedback from your brain into that part of your body that's like, hey, let's maybe work a little bit more. Right arm can come forward. Pelvic points drawn in, left glute is on. Maybe we lift the left leg. Nice. Keep the throat, keep the face lifting up. Right, so it's simple, but a lot of this is actually pretty challenging. Let's bring the right hand and the left knee down. So I am going to grab a hold of my blocks here as we set up for downward facing dog. You are welcome to do the same. And spread the fingers nice and wide here. Tuck the toes under and then lift in between your shoulder blades. I want you to imagine that someone had their fingers right here in your hip creases, and they were going to lift you up into a downward facing dog. Awesome. Push into your hands. And I always recommend coming on your toes, bending your knees, and then really sending the hip creases high. And you can give your head a little rock forward and back, side to side. Arms are straight and strong. And imagine that you are lifting underneath the armpits and the forearms so that we're not collapsing the chest back to the thighs. Really nice. Yeah. And then keeping the hands flat, we're going to start to walk 1 foot forward at a time. And you are always welcome right? Maybe if you're kind of stuck back here, you can always grab a hold of your calf and step the foot forward. So that's going to be an option in a lot of the moves that we do today. So let's go ahead and rise to stand. I'm going to take my blocks up a little bit higher here. And now notice here as you stand, kind of what your posture is doing. And can you imagine, we're going to take your skull and move it back. You can even have your hand back here. And that you are going to take your tailbone and just lengthen it straight down. So we don't want to have the pelvis tipping forward here or overly tipped back. But the tailbone is lengthened down, the face is moving back, and that we're standing up nice and tall here. Let's take an inhale, bring the arms forward and up. Without changing that posture, just reach the arms up. And then keeping that nice tall posture, sit back into the hip creases. You can put your fingers in your hip creases here. Hands can lower. Step the right foot back. Lower the knee and come onto the top of the right foot. And go ahead and take your hands, maybe left hand in front of the pelvis, right hand behind. And then just feel there, the front pelvic points lightly hugging in and the tailbone and back lengthening downward. Maybe stay right there. Maybe you bring the arms up without changing that. Really nice. Just feel that the right knee is directly under the hip. And then we'll bring the hands down to the floor or to your blocks again. Step into your downward facing dog. Push the floor or the blocks away. Lift the hip creases up. Then we're going to step the right foot forward without picking up the hands. And even if you get right here, take the right hand, grab the calf, step it up. Lower the left knee, come onto the top of the foot. And then check in again. So you can have one hand in front of the pelvis, one hand in back. Front pelvic points draw together. Tailbone lengthens down. And we've got that left knee directly under the hip. Maybe you bring your arms up without changing that shape. Bring both hands down, floor or blocks, and we'll step the left foot up next to the right. Awesome. Now hold your forward fold right here, and you can place the fingers right here in the hip creases and think about sitting that back and elongating your spine forward. And then once again, notice that we're not lifting the chin up or totally letting the head drop. But it's like that good posture even in a position like this. And then we'll rise to stand. Awesome. Let's do that again. Bring the arms forward and up. Notice the throat moving back, tailbone lengthening down. Hinge back into the hips, nice long spine. Hands lower, step the left foot back. And lower the knee, but keep the toes tucked under here. You can check in again with your pelvis. One hand in front, one hand in back. And then lengthen the tailbone down. And this time check in with this left glute. So you can give it a little tap. And if it doesn't feel like it's activating, just tap it with the fingers and really put your brain into that muscle. And it will start to respond to that eventually, right? So sometimes we just have to stay a little bit consistent with that. And then maybe you bring the arms up, maybe you keep the hands on the pelvis. Both hands come down, floor or blocks. Step the right foot back, downward facing dog. Bend the knees, lift the hip creases up. We'll step the left foot forward, always the option. Grab the calf, bring it a little bit further, and then lower the right knee, but keep the toes tucked under. Check in with the pelvis, tailbone down, pelvic points together, and then let's just check in with this right glute. We can give it some little taps. Say, come on, buddy. This is always my harder side. This glute does not want to work as hard as my left one. I'm gonna give it a little love. And then maybe the arms come up, or maybe you just keep the hands on the pelvis. Bring both hands back down, floor or blocks, and then right foot will step up next to the left. Pausing here, sit back into the hips. Notice the length in the spine and that nice neutral neck. Not looking forward and not dropping the head. Awesome. Let's rise to stand here. So we're gonna come into a crescent lunge, stepping the left foot back. So you can always have something to balance on nearby if you need that. Loop. And then look down here at your right big toe, and right down at the base of the big toe, see if you can push down right into that point. And so looking right at it is going to help because you're giving that feedback to that part of your body. Awesome. Now we can soften the back knee a little bit and just notice that we're not tipping forward in the pelvis here, and we're not kind of overly coming back. Tailbone lengthens down. And we can give that left glute a little tap here, right? We want that glute to really be working in this position. And check in with your breath. You can keep the hands here. Always the option to bring them up. All right, coming into a warrior two. Right leg will stay the same, but then we're going to spin the left toes open to the left side of your mat and bring your arms forward and back here. And now same thing here. You can have the hands on the front of the pelvis, lightly hug those front pelvic points together. And then we'll take an inhale breath. Exhale, reverse your warrior. Take that right arm up and over. We're reaching from the right shoulder blade. And let the left ear just soften toward the shoulder. Inhale back to warrior two. Exhale, side angle, right forearm on the right thigh. Left arm reaches up and over. See if you can soften the right ear to the right shoulder and push into the outer edge of your left foot. Nice. And then we're going to bring both hands down to the floor, lower the left knee, and then bring the right knee next to it. So we're back in our tabletop. We're gonna do a really slow cat-cow. And in this cat-cow, I want you to think about moving each vertebra in your spine. So we're gonna drag the hands back without actually moving them. So you can get that feeling of kind of pulling back with the hands, but they stay where they are. And then just begin to turn the tailbone up a little bit. Soften the lower back, the middle back, the upper back. You can bring your gaze forward here. And then we just reverse that. Drop the head, lift the upper back, the middle back, the lower back, and now feel your tailbone kind of curled down. Let's do that one more time. Think about pulling the hands back a little bit, tailbone turns up slightly, and then we just soften. Lower, middle, upper back, gaze comes forward, and then reverse it. Push the floor away, drop the head, lift the upper back, the middle back, the lower back. Really nice. And then come back to neutral here. So we're gonna come back into downward facing dog. Hands on blocks around the floor. Lift up in between the shoulder blades and then pike your hip creases straight up. Take a breath in and a breath out. We'll start to walk 1 foot forward at a time, just coming as far forward as you can, and we'll rise to stand. All right, we got one more side here. So this time we're gonna step the right foot back, crescent lunge. And it's not really a big deal of how far you step the foot back. You're just looking for what feels good in your body. But regardless of where you are, go ahead and look down at your left big toe mound and then push down into the floor. And just feel how that gives you a little bit more support and a little bit more stability. The back knee can soften a little bit. Tailbone lengthens down. Pelvic points pull together. So we are just trying to avoid tipping in the pelvis. We're just trying to stay in neutral for this one. Always the option to bring your arms straight up. And then we're going to keep the left foot and leg the same. Turn the right toes out to the right and open your arms for warrior two. Feel a little bit of this front pelvic point drawing together. And I will say, sometimes you'll hear people say like your front heel has to be directly kind of in line with the center of your back foot. Play around with it and see what feels good in your body, right? So if you need to take your right foot forward a little bit, awesome, right? No problem here. Play around, see what feels good. If you need to move the toes slightly forward, your practice and your body. So we're going to take an inhale breath and exhale, reverse your warrior. So we're just reaching the left arm up and over. Let your right ear soften toward the shoulder. Reaching from the left shoulder blade. Inhale, warrior two. Exhale, side angle. Left forearm comes to the thigh and the right arm will reach up and over. Let that left ear relax, pushing into the outer edge of the right foot. Come back, warrior two. And we'll windmill down to the floor. Right knee lowers, left knee lowers. We're in tabletop again. And we'll just move through that really slow, methodical cat-cow. Just feeling like you can articulate each part of your spine. Moving with your breath, your pace. And we'll come back through neutral here. Let's just come around onto your back. It's nice and easy. And have your props nearby. And if you happen to have a pillow or a blanket nearby, that can also be a nice little object to grab here as we start to wind down. So once you're on your back here, let's go ahead and take your feet about mat's width apart. And then we'll let the knees fall over to the right, but think about pushing into the sole of the left foot so that we're just getting a little bit of nice opening kind of in that left hip along the front of the left thigh. You can have the arms out to the sides, maybe in a goalpost with the elbows bent. And bring the knees back up through center and do the same thing over to the left. Left leg drops toward the floor, the sole of the right foot pushes into the floor just a little bit. Just feel that space along the right side and breathing into it. And come back through center. And then just do a few more side to side And not really worrying about your form or what it looks like. I'm just noticing what feels good. And then as you're ready here, we're going to come into our Shavasana. So you have really endless possibilities here. You can always keep your feet on the floor if that feels better on your lower back. I am going to take a rolled up blanket here and place it behind my knees. You can also do the same thing with 2 blocks. You just place them kind of right behind your thighs. If you need a little support for your head, you could take a pillow or a blanket right behind your neck or behind your head. So just take as long as you need here. Settle in. Find a place where you feel supported and a place where you can relax. And start to tune into your breath. And just noticing any ways in which your body is speaking to you. And there are places that feel a little bit freer and more spacious. And if there's anywhere that feels restricted, tense, and let that be just little bits of information that we're gathering, both on the mat and off, so that we can live in better understanding and awareness and communication with our bodies, with our minds, and the things that they're communicating to us. And let your next breath be a little bit deeper. And start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And in your own time, start to roll over to your side. Let's Just take a moment to pause there. Gently pushing yourself up to a comfortable seat. I'm going to prop my hips up on a blanket here. You're welcome to do the same with a blanket or a block. Just feel your face and your throat moving back. Your head is centered over your shoulders. Feel your spine long and your pelvis heavy. Feel that clear passage for your breath. And just take a moment to thank yourself, whether this was your first class ever or if you've been practicing for years. Just thanking yourself for creating this time to show up, to reconnect, so that we can be our most embodied selves. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Hope you enjoyed this class. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. You can hit subscribe so that you never miss classes that I post. And as always, please feel free to share these classes with anyone you think might benefit. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.